Hello, everyone. So, in case you are a little bit out of the loop, or maybe you don't follow competitive Magic, you may not know that the most recent Pro Tour, Final Fantasy, was just played out, and the top 8 of the entire thing was all mono red aggro and Is It Prowess. It was literally the entire top 8. Take a look at this real quick. Let's bring this up. Yeah, take a look at that. So that was the top 8 bracket for the entire thing. This guy up in the top right over here, Ken Yukihiro, he won the whole thing with mono red aggro. He went all the way against Ian Robb, won 3 games to 0. But you look at the decks here: mono red aggro, mono red aggro, mono red, mono red. Then Is It Prowess, Is It Prowess, Is It Prowess, and Is It Prowess. So yeah, you had all 4 of the mono red players playing against each other. Then all 4 of the Is It Prowess players playing against each other. And then in the semis, you had 2 mono red decks going at it again, and then 2 Is It Prowess going at it again, until you get to the final right here with mono red aggro, the best mono red aggro player and the best Is It Prowess player going at it. So that's a problem. I don't think anyone needs to have any more clarity on how much of a problem that is. With only 2 deck archetypes in the entire top 8, and both of them being red, that's a problem. And it's such a problem that people are hedging their bets on what is going to be getting banned on June 30th in just a couple days. And a lot of people are saying that Monstrous Rage has got to go. And a lot of people are saying, like, no, you can't just ban Monstrous Rage because then Omniscience will be the only deck in the format. Then people want to say, like, okay, well, let's ban that too. Well, if we're going to ban those, we need to ban something else, so something else that doesn't just step into the power vacuum. There's a lot of different viewpoints on what should get banned or what should not get banned on June 30th. And I personally think we need sweeping bans. We need a lot of different things to get hit in order to bring this metagame back to heel, so we can actually be in a format where Standard actually is flourishing, and we're not just being told that Standard is flourishing. So, but I'm not a professional player. I'm just a guy who likes Magic a lot. I like to follow the game and share my silly decks online. But there is one person that I do respect their input on, and this person is actually a professional player and a content creator and a sometimes broadcaster for the game. And that person is Jim Davis. So Jim Davis put out a video a couple days ago. I have not watched this yet, so this is going to be my live reaction to his thoughts on what should get banned or what shouldn't get banned. And already, the title here has me interested. He's saying, don't ban Monstrous Rage, ban this card instead. So I want to hear what this guy has to say and give my thoughts on it. So join me right now while we take a look at what Mr. Davis has to say, what we should or should not ban.
Pretty firmly against banning cards in Magic the Gathering formats. It's easy to view it as the easy way out. You know, oh, I lost this card over and over again. This card is so good. And kind of give yourself an out without taking the time to really try and see if you can solve the problem, which is kind of the core game engine. But sometimes we get a point where bans are necessary, however bad they may be.
Okay. And I do agree with that. I agree with that 100%. I feel bans are necessary in this point, just solely based off of the fact that so much of the top 8, and honestly, like the full tournament itself, like there were 140 Is It decks registered for this tournament. It was insane. And for a tournament called Pro Tour Final Fantasy and no Final Fantasy decks actually made it very far, that's a problem, right? Don't you think so? I think so.
At that point now, let's discuss.
Hey, cool
Pro
intro.
Tour Final Fantasy was last weekend, and it saw pretty unprecedented metagame share. Is it
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about right here. Is It Prowess, 140 decks. That's 42% of the field. Then you have Azorius Omniscience, the combo deck that wins on turn 4. 66, you had 36 mono red decks, 14 Domain Overlords, 11 Dimir midrange, 8 Jund Roots. Then over here you have 6 Azorius Control, 6 Orzhov Pixie, 5 Golgari Roots, 4 Boros Aggro, 4 Jeskai Control, and 31 various other random rogue decks. So you can see this is a problem. 140 Izzet Prowess is a wild meta share.
Mouse has been the top dog in Standard now for the last few months, ever since the printing of Cori-Steel Cutter in Tarkir Dragonstorm. And while the deck is kind of waxed and waned in actual success in a lot of the regional championship Spotlight series, it did well, but not great. I come to a head here where the Pro Tour is the ultimate signifier of what the best players in the world think about a given deck. And at 43% of the field, pretty absurd play rate, one of the highest we've seen in a very, very long time. Pro Tour players clearly stated that this is the best deck, and they are willing to play it. That being said, the deck did not have a great win rate at the Pro Tour, ended up at about 49%, which, given how large the sample size was, you're going to regret.
A thing to consider there is, yeah, sure, they did not have as good of a win rate as some of the other decks, despite it being the overwhelming deck choice. The thing about being the best deck is you've got all eyes on you. Other people are going to have ways to take you on, either in the main board or in the sideboard. I've seen plenty of people choosing to run Magebane Lizard in the main deck, not even running in sideboard. Like, people were that focused on beating this deck.
Respect to the mean, the larger the size is, it's still not great. You know, we look at a deck like Nadu, which is at almost 60% and won the Pro Tour. And of course, Izzet did not win. It fell in the finals to the hands of Ken Yukihiro, a very worthy Pro Tour champion. Congrats, Ken. That's awesome.
Like yes, absolutely. He absolutely earned that.
However, despite that, the metagame was clearly warped around it. And I think that the line in the sand you can draw here is there are metagames adapting to a deck or card, and there are metagames having to over-adapt. So the line of the sand for me is, on one side, we've got temporary lockdown being the sweeper of choice. Temporary lockdown is a sweeper of choice in a form.
It is, because it's pretty much the only thing that can scoop up everything. It'll hit the small creatures, it will hit Cori-Steel Cutter, it'll hit like any other like 2 or less permanent that's on the table. Now, another thing to bear in mind is when Edge of Eternities comes out, temporary lockdown will be rotating. And so we're going to have to find a replacement for temporary lockdown. Otherwise, the red decks are just going to run everybody over and they can't be stopped because the deck is too fast. It's a deck that wins on turn 3/turn 4. So if you don't have a good answer on turn 2 or 3, you might as well just pack up your cards.
That is a metagame consideration. You know, if you're playing it over Day of Judgment or Sunfall because Cutter decks are really good, mono red decks are really good, that's cool. That's a metagame shift. That's a format adapting to a certain problem. It's a little different when you have cards like Magebane Lizard and High Noon in main decks all over the place.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. People choosing to take sideboard cards and play them in the main deck because they know this deck is going to be such a problem.
That is the other side of the line. That's the point where it's no longer an adaptation. It's just a gross overcorrection because the deck is being so overplayed and just such a huge part of the metagame. You want to pre-sideboard against it, which is where things get ugly. That's clearly the world we were living in Final Fantasy, despite the deck not doing that well. A lot of the problem here is also the type of deck that Cori-Steel Cutter is. It's a cheap blue cantrip red aggressive deck. And when you have decks really that are based around sleight of hand and opt, as you see it with Phoenix and Pioneer and many other places, Splinter Twin and so on and so forth, these decks are so cheap and so efficient where every card in the deck costs 1 or 2. It's kind of hard for things to go wrong with those decks because you need lands and cheap spells. You'll find.
Yeah, and most of the time these hyper aggressive decks that are so well fine-tuned, they're running like exactly 4 copies of all their very relevant cards. Like if you look at the mono red mice deck, like that deck is so fine-tuned that every card in that deck is a 4 of. It's like they've chosen the absolute best lines for that deck and said, I want 4 copies of all of these cards because I want to have the most consistent game plan possible.
What you need to do, you'll find your answers and do your thing. As it stands, I think it's pretty clear at this point that Cori-Steel Cutter will be banned at the next ban announcement in 1 week on the 30th. I don't think it's really up for discussion.
Do I agree with this? my personal first stance on this is that I don't think that it should be banned outright, like full stop. I think that it is definitely a problem. I think that Monstrous Rage is more of a problem than Cori-Steel Cutter. I do not think that WotC will ban it, but I hope they do. I really do, because that card is bonkers. Even though I have 4 copies of it in paper, like, I would be relieved to hear that this card gets banned.
Don't think Wizards would allow for a 43% metagame share to go on, and also the community is outraging as it always does, but this time actually with warrant. So Steel Cutter, you're out of here. Would be very surprised to see that card not banned. The more interesting question is, what other cards should be banned? Now, of course, we've heard cries for various bans over the last year or so in Standard. You know, Monstrous Rage here, up the Beanstalk there. But every time, the deck would be really, really big for a while and then take a big dip in the usual metagame shifts that we're used to, what indicates a good format. And make no mistake, Standard of the last 2 years has been the best format in Magic. It has been phenomenal. Slight, here or there was a little trip up or whatever it might be. And there's, a card or two I might change if I had the ultimate power to do so. But Standard's been great. So any other changes are made with a grain of salt. And also to be understanding that when you ban a card, Magic cards ain't free. It's easy to view Arena and
there's definitely a problem with banning certain cards, because if you're banning cards that have like a really high monetary value because they're really good, then suddenly you are nuking someone's investment, because a lot of people don't go out and buy packs, they go and buy singles, and they'll pay like a premium cost for certain cards, and then once that card gets nuked or banned from a format, suddenly that card doesn't hold nearly as much weight as it once did. So like, if you ban Cori-Steel Cutter, a card that is currently going for around $10 a pop, suddenly that card goes to like $2 a pop. It's still a good card in other formats, but because it's not being able to be played in Standard, it now doesn't hold nearly as much water. And on the other side of that token is, you don't typically want to ban cards from very recent sets, because then that devalues the pack prices of those sets too. Because suddenly the cards that you're looking for from that set aren't as attractive, and then that means you're not going to be buying from that set anymore. You may be going to be buying something else, or not buying at all.
Online platforms, you can just kind of get new cards, you get your wild cards back, whatever, it's not a big deal. Sure, but in paper, trying to encourage paper play and pay people to invest in their Magic cards, and someone who goes to F&M who might end up being a next Pro Tour champion or big time player, but they're playing Magic for the first time, they built their deck, and they go to F&M and they say, sorry, you can't play the deck anymore. And even though they can't play the card they banned, all the other cards are illegal, the deck might not be good anymore. So there's a huge cost to banning, which I think is really, really important to look at before you look at these possible new bans. And it should not be overstated how dangerous it is for the game to get into this ban loop, ban culture. That being said, the red deck is really, really good. And
very good.
Big cries for Monstrous Rage being banned from prominent people like Saffron Olive and Brian Kibler. And
Monstrous Rage should have been banned a long time ago.
I think the red shell is a little too good. We saw the deck do really, really well at the last Pro Tour, despite falling in the finals or the top 8 to Domain. I don't think overcorrection is necessary. Monstrous Rage is the card everyone wants to ban next, and I am against the banning of Monstrous Rage. I think that having a pump spell be one of the best cards of the format is awesome. How often do we ever see that? It's really...
I would disagree with this point. I honestly think that Monstrous Rage should be banned, simply because of the fact that it nullifies blocking. It kind of removes one of the core tenets of Magic play, is attackers and blockers. And you have something like this, you play it on a card that has prowess, and suddenly you're giving +4, +2 and trample for a single red mana. It's an absolutely absurd card with an absurd power spike. And especially the mice package. You pop that on a Heartfire hero after you've given it double strike from your for your Manifold Mouse, and then you pop a Monstrous Rage on top of that, like, that's just game over, man. It's like, that's turn 3 game over.
Really unique effect. And it's also a card that is not ubiquitously played. The prowess decks are often playing like 2 copies. Some are playing more copies of Wild Ride than Monstrous Rage. And in the red decks, they are playing.
Wild Ride is good, but I see it more in Izzet decks than I do see it in mono red decks, simply just because the Monstrous Rage is just better than Wild Ride. Because like you're not always going to have extra creatures to harmonize the cost down. And also, all your dudes already have haste to begin with. And if they don't have haste, you can give them haste with the what was it, the Rockpaw Village, the land from Blueburrow.
4, but it's mostly buoyed by how powerful Manifold Mouse is. And the possibility of that double strike Monstrous Rage turn is the real kill that gets you ticked off for losing because you feel like you're playing Modern. Manifold Mouse is the card I want to discuss because Manifold Mouse, I think, is the true card that should be banned. I'm saying this for a long time.
I will agree with that. The Manifold Mouse really enables the rest of the package to do absolutely bonkers things. And especially if you have enough mana to offspring it, suddenly you have 2 of them and you can give any of your other creatures both double strike and trample. Forget about it.
You are going to ban a card from red. Manifold Mouse is the catalyst. It is the card that makes every card in the deck function. It's an enabler for all of your other mice cards, Heartfire Hero and Emberheart Challenger, which are both unbelievably good. It is the best Monstrous Rage enabler. It is cheap. It is card advantage at 4 mana. It is double strike itself. It does literally everything the deck wants to do, and it turbocharges it as well. So with Manifold Mouse in play, all of your other cards get so much better. And if you remove that piece, the red deck goes from being, I think, a little too good to being a welcome player in the metagame, which mono red should be. So
yeah,
if we're going to ban a card from red, I think it should be Manifold Mouse. Monstrous Rage should not be banned. And I know Monstrous Rage is the knee-jerk card. Everyone's, oh my god, ban Monstrous Rage. It's important to stop and think critically about bans and think about what the big picture is. And a Manifold Mouse is the card, despite what people are telling you. Those are the 2 big ones, right? I think that Red's won the Pro Tour, been good forever. Cori-Steel Cutter, sure. Now the question becomes, how deep do you want to go? The next card up for me is Omniscience, or any card from.
Yes, 100% yes. So here's the thing with Omniscience is there are multiple different ways to reanimate Omniscience onto the table. There's Abila's Awakening, there is Squirming Emergence, there's even I think it was called like it's not Recommission, but it was a 5 mana white card that you can get like a creature, an enchantment, or a planeswalker back. I think it's Repair and Rebuild, some card from Brothers War. So like if you ban Abila's Awakening, Omniscience will just move to a different card to get it into play. So I really think getting Omniscience out of the format is the better play here when it comes to bans. Because if you just ban Abila's Awakening, they'll find another way to get it into play. It may not be as efficient, but they'll do it.
Omniscience. Omniscience was the second most played deck at the Pro Tour, and it had a 54% win rate almost, which is very, very good. And Combo is a deck that should exist in Standard, but it should never be tier 1, I think. I think it's in line with what Wizards wants. It is a turn 4 combo if you get really lucky, but even just that like combo.
Yeah, and here's the thing too, is if you ban the red cards, there's going to be a power vacuum. And Omniscience will slot right into that power vacuum because it is a control deck that will combo off on turn 4 if left unchecked. So this deck will become the top tier deck to beat if Omniscience does not get banned.
Cast my cards, cast my cards, cast my cards. You're going to sit here and wait for me to do this is not a gameplay experience I think Wizards wants, and I think the Omniscience definitely passes that bar. I think putting Omniscience in Foundations was ill-suited for what the set is trying to do, and I would not be surprised to see a card from this deck go.
I would agree with that.
Omniscience being the namesake card is probably the safest card to ban. It's a card that only ever does unfun things. And it's not a card you'd be surprised is banned either. Like, oh, this card makes everything free. If you just shoot it to play, it's pretty unfair. So sure, whatever. Could ban Abila's Awakening or some other like card in a deck that is more combo focused, I suppose. But The deck has gotten so streamlined now, where it plays the Dragon package, it plays very few actual combo cards. I think
Hmm.
Omni's the hit if you want to hit it, and I wouldn't be sad if they did. Honestly, I think that that's a deck where it's very insular what it does. You kind of know what you're getting into when you build that deck, and that is what it is. So wouldn't be surprised to see Omni banned as a third card on my ban list. Although I wouldn't be surprised to see it left as either. The last big card folks have wanted to see banned.
Yeah, I will absolutely say right now, if all the red cards get banned and they leave Omniscience alone, you're going to see a lot of people immediately running out to buy the Omniscience deck and play it immediately because it's really damn good.
For a while is Up the Beanstalk. Domain. It's been a serious deck forever. It won the Pro Tour, Matt Nass's hands. It did pretty well at this last
Up
Pro
the
Tour.
Beanstalk is
in the hands of my former
bananas.
teammates Edgar Mahog, I can't say his name. Whatever. And Reed Duke. They both came in top 16 with the deck. Edgar missed out on top 8 at Breakers. But the list was also playing 4 high noons, 2 main deck authorities, and clearly, on the wrong side of the format. Beanstalk's a really powerful card. The fear is that once you make a ban, once you remove Cutter or Red from the format or power them down, now what other deck's going to creep up and be too good at that point? And that's kind of the problem where
And yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, is you create a power vacuum when you ban all of these red cards. And Up the Beanstalk is way too damn strong. Like, the fact that there's so many 5+ mana cards that you can mana cheat down cards like This Town Ain't Big Enough, cards like what was it, Leyline Binding, a card that's supposed to cost 6 mana, but if you have Domain, it can cost like 1. It's like cards that like that are so good with Up the Beanstalk because you just never run out of cards to play. I have a freaking Teamer deck that runs this card with Teamer Battle Crier, and I've drawn like 20 cards in the course of a single turn just because I had a couple copies of Up the Beanstalk on the table. It's an absolutely absurd card that it should read like whenever you spend 5 or more mana on a spell, draw a card. Not the way that it's written currently, because the way that's written currently, it allows you to cheat mana and just draw way too many cards. It's just way too good.
banning cards is sort of like the if you give Mouse cookie scenario where Navar's going to be another best deck. What do? Just ban that deck? There will always be a best deck. The question is, will that best deck shift as metagame shift, or is it always going to be the best deck? So very easy to like see Domain win the next tournament. Oh my god, I got to ban Domain now. No, very, very dangerous line of thought. And play. I caution you, if that's the kind of thought you go down, to think a little more critically about how bans work. But the Beanstalk's a powerful card. The important thing here, I think, is that Leyline Binding and Zur will both be rotating very, very soon in the fall.
Yeah, that's right.
With the next set. And without Binding, I think Beans is much more tolerable. It's still really good. I think it could be a card that could be viewed as a watch list card. But kind of the opposite of Cori-Steel Cutter, where Beanstalk decks are by nature very clunky. They're playing big expensive cards, lots of tap lands, and that sort of deck is much more exploitable than the all 1 mana spell cantrip deck. So the ability to find a way to beat it or find kind of holes that you can exploit is much greater, making a card like Beans much less necessary to ban. So I wouldn't be hyper surprised if they banned Up the Beanstalk 1 week from today, but I don't think it's necessary and not really prudent.
I would disagree with that simply on the fact that that card really nullifies a good bit of strategies. Like, it completely nullifies like the discard strategy. It completely nullifies any kind of like mid-range that wants to try and compete with a hard control strategy, simply just because of all of the cards that have those mana discounts that happen to have a printed mana cost of 5 or more. It's just such a really good card, and quite personally, I think if I was in control of the bans, I would probably get Up the Beanstalk out of here. Just my take on that.
There are a few other cards to consider, I suppose. Stormchaser's Talent has been a major player in Standard now for quite a
No,
while.
I disagree. I disagree with that. This is a great card and a good card for the Is It Prowess deck. Honestly, it's one of the cards that really enables Is It Prowess to be a deck right now. Like if you get rid of Cori-Steel Cutter, Monstrous Rage, and like maybe like one other card, Stormchaser's Talent will still be very good for the Is It Prowess deck. I think if you get rid of Stormchaser's Talent, you potentially damage the deck so much that the deck cannot compete at that point. So I don't think that you should hit Stormchaser's Talent.
This town ain't big enough. Hopeless Nightmare from the Pixie decks. Even Stock Up. And Stock Up's its own separate thing, but...
Stock Up is a really good draw spell, but I don't think it should be banned. Not in the slightest. It's good. It's good at what it does. But it's sorcerer speed, it's slow. It does give you good card selection early in the game. It's really good divination. There's no reason to ban that. In the case of Hopeless Nightmare, it can be annoying, sure, but it's not so like annoying that it needs to be banned. I mean, the way to beat discard decks is just play out your hand faster than they can make you discard it. So that's pretty much that. Like, I don't think either of those two other cards need to get banned.
All the cards I just mentioned, you can't ban cards like this. All right, folks. Yeah, they're good. They're annoying to lose to sometimes, but that's Magic. All right, some cards are good. You got to beat the cards that are good or play them, which is what it is. My last consideration here I want to talk about is the card Stock Up. And Stock Up was actually the most played card at the entire Pro Tour. It's played in like 60% of every deck in the format.
Yeah,
and
it's a good card.
That is an unprecedented play rate, higher than the One Ring when the One Ring got banned. So why am I not calling for a Stock Up ban? Stock Up is a symptom, not the actual problem. The fact is that Stock Up is just really, really good in
it's just a great draw spell.
And it's really, really good in Omniscience decks. And it's also good in Control decks. And that's more of a problem with Omniscience and Cori-Steel Cutter, not the card Stock Up. Stock Up is a very, very good Magic card. It's a 3-mana sorcery that draws 2 cards. It's not particularly broken. It is not, Treasure Cruise or whatever else. It's just a good card for Control decks and blue decks looking to gas up or find the right cards.
Mm-hmm.
It is the enabler. It is not the problem itself. And I think Stock Up is great. And I think people aren't really saying to ban Stock Up, but I know the high play rate is a card that you could view as a concern. So in summation, Cori-Steel Cutter is gone. There's no chance this card is not banned. I would bet my life on it. A card from Red's got to go. I think it is probably Manifold Mouse. And then if you want to ban Omniscience or up the Beanstalk, I think that's okay. With Wizards kind of handcuffing themselves with these, only once a year ban cycles, which I think are stupid. And they're also going to have.
I agree. I think bans should be once every 6 months, not once a year.
These 3-year standard formats with 3 years of sets when they're releasing 19 sets a year. That's also pretty risky, which I would kind of like to change regardless. We can't change that anyway. So I can see them kind of just, firing off Omniscience and Beanstalk and going from there as well. But those are the 4 cards I think are consideration. I think any other card is not in the consideration. And if you want to ban 10 cards, I urge you to think critically about the fact that Magic is not a free game and not everyone doesn't have all the cards to start with. There's investment, there's a lot more going on. And it's funny because for me, I would like it more. For me personally, as a content creator and a professional Magic player who has access to all the cards basically all the time, I would love it if the ban cards are crazy. It would be much more fun to me to solve a new format every 2 weeks, but I also recognize how bad that is for the game and how unhealthy that is. So that's what I think. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe, and don't be lazy out there, all right?
Don't be lazy out there. All right, good sign off right there. Okay, so for my thoughts on this, I would definitely say excellent, good video from Mr. Jim here. I definitely appreciate his insights on this as a professional player and a caster, and someone who has a lot more experience than even myself. That being said, if it was my choice for the bans, I would ban specifically Monstrous Rage, Cori-Steel Cutter, Omniscience, and Up the Beanstalk. Those would be like my prime targets for cards to be banned. So would definitely think about those cards in the very near future. I am not omniscient myself, so I don't know what is actually going to happen. If I were to hedge any bets, I would say that they would ban either one card or they would ban no cards. Because Wizards of the Coast has a pretty good track record of saying, figure it out yourselves. The meta will shift. Rotation's coming up pretty soon. We don't need to ban nothing. And then we run into situations like this where people sign up with 140 Is It Prowess decks. So, is what it is. What do you guys think? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think should be banned, and we will talk again later. So, until next time, you take care of yourselves.